ERIDE is one of the most popular electric dirt bike manufacturers in the United States. They have quite a few models in their catalog now, and there's something there for everybody. So what I'm going to do in this video is break down all the models they have out currently and help you figure out which one is going to be right for you. Shout out to my friends over at Vora Motors for sponsoring this video. If there's any of these bikes that you like in this video, there'll be a link down below to pick one up from Vora. Alright, first off, let's start with the brand new ERIDE Pro SS 3.0. The 3.0 has had a ton of necessary upgrades over last year's version, the ERIDE Pro SS 2.0, which was one of my favorite bikes of 2024. One of the most important upgrades is the brand new 72 volt 50 amp hour battery. Now, more amp hours means better range. ERIDE claims you can get over 60 miles of range on this bike, but in realistic riding conditions, I'd say it's more like 25 to maybe 40 if you're very careful. The 3.0 now has a claimed 15.3 kilowatts peak power over the ERIDE Pro SS 2.0's 12 kilowatts peak power. The top speed, however, is still roughly the same. Their website says 62 mile an hour. I actually have the bike on test right now. I haven't done a full top speed test just yet, but I think it's still around 60 miles an hour. On the other hand, this bike has now gotten a little bit heavier. They claim this bike now weighs around 167 pounds, whereas the ERIDE Pro SS 2.0 weighed about 145, which is a pretty common thing we're seeing all across the industry now. These bikes are getting bigger and heavier because people are demanding higher top speeds, longer ranges, better built frames, better built components, so that's just what's going to be happening over the next year or so. Some other new features include the dual sport tires that come standard on this bike, instead of the usual generic off-road tires that used to come in these bikes that would wear out after 2 miles. You're also getting .4 brakes like a proper motorcycle, as well as huge foot pegs that are big enough to sleep on. The seat height on the 3.0 is roughly 34 inches, which is a perfect size for a guy like me who's about 5'10". If you're any taller than 6'3" on a bike like this, you'll be doing the pocket bike squat. Charging time is roughly 4 hours from 0 to full, which is typical of all these bikes, so I'm probably not going to mention it again. Aftermarket support is also excellent with ERIDE, and it's one of the biggest benefits to buying this brand. Right now, you can pick up the 3.0 from Vora Motors for $49.95. I would say the 3.0 overall is the most complete and best all-around bike in the catalog. You know, if you're not a super experienced guy, if you have a little bit of experience, this bike is sort of good for everybody, and it's a very good gradient for new riders, I would say so. Okay, moving on to something that is definitely not for the inexperienced riders, the ERIDE Pro SR. I recently tested the ERIDE Pro SR on my personal channel, and this thing was just a riot to ride. It was insane. It was so powerful. It has the same 72 volt 50 amp hour battery as the 3.0, but ERIDE claims this thing's knocking out 25 kilowatts of peak power, and I believe it. It was insanely powerful. I reached a top speed of about 70 mile an hour on this bike, which isn't the fastest. The Ventus one does go a little bit quicker. However, the SR features a 58 tooth sprocket, so if you go down to like, you know, a 54 or a 45, you're going to be able to get much higher top speeds out of this thing. While this thing is very fast and very powerful, you can actually detune it inside the app yourself. So if you buy this for yourself, an experienced rider, and want to let someone younger have a go on it, you can detune it in the app. That way they don't have an absolute bomb in between their legs that's going to probably launch them into hyperspace. The SR is the most expensive bike in ERIDE's catalog, coming in at $55.99. So if you have the experience and you have the cash, this would be a great bike to pick up. Alright, moving on to one of the most beginner-friendly bikes in the catalog, the ERIDE Pro S. Now, because I haven't ridden this bike, I don't have any footage of it, so we're just going to jump on the website and talk about the specs that we see here. So coming in at $35.99, it's one of the least expensive bikes in the catalog, and the best way to think about this bike, in my opinion, is sort of like an ERIDE Pro 3.0 base model version, if that makes sense. So let's go down to the specs. Top speed, 50 mile an hour. Out of a 72 volt 30 amp hour battery. That is going to be plenty of power for a brand new rider. This bike would be ideal for entry level riders who are in maybe the early teens. If you don't want to get your kids something like a 3.0, which is going to have a ton of power, or especially an SR, this would be a great place to start. Has a claimed peak power of 6 kilowatts and a top speed of 50 mile an hour. So it's not slow enough to where they're going to get bored, but not powerful enough to where they're going to get hurt within the first day of riding it. Range is a claimed 41 to 62 miles. As always, that's always subject to change, as they mentioned on the website. I'd say like the rest of the bikes, it's going to be realistically around 20 to 35. The 17-inch wheels is also a good feature as well. That means it's going to be a little bit smaller for younger or just shorter riders. And the overall package weighs 128 pounds, so it's super lightweight. This is far more reminiscent to like the Soren Lightbee. This really is quite a lot of bike for the price, man. I remember a brand new Soren Lightbee 3 years ago was like $4,700. And this, man, is almost $1,000 off, so it's a pretty good deal, especially if you're a parent and you want to get your kid into riding. Don't want to get them something too crazy. This would be an ideal place to start. Okay, moving on to the least expensive and smallest bike in the catalog, and also something I haven't ridden yet, the ERIDE Pro Mini, coming in at $3,100, basically $3,100. This thing offers a lot of power for the money, man. 6 kilowatts peak power, just like the ERIDE Pro S. Almost 50 mile an hour top speed, but it only weighs 107 pounds, so it's a very small bike. Another cool feature about this bike is that it features a mullet wheel setup, so you got a 14-inch front and a 12-inch rear, just like a proper dirt bike. You get a 60-volt 30-amp-hour battery that has a claimed range of 40 miles. Now, considering how small and lightweight this thing is, if you ride it responsibly, I'd say that would be entirely possible. Much like the rest of the category, it's also featuring fast-stage suspension. I much prefer the fast-stage suspension other than some of the other suspension that come on other models and different brands. Overall, if there's one bike in the catalog that I haven't ridden yet that I would love to, it would be this. Alright then, let's neatly wrap everything up, starting with the ERIDE Pro SS 3.0. I would say the 3.0 is the best overall bike as far as price and performance goes. It's also very suitable for new riders as well as experienced guys. Plenty of power so new riders won't get bored too quickly, and plenty of power and fun to be had for experienced riders just to throw around it and have a laugh with. Okay, moving on to the ERIDE Pro SR. If you are an experienced rider and a lunatic, and happen to have that kind of cash sitting around, that would be the bike for you. The SR is very fast, very powerful, and an absolute handful when it's in its max power setting. Thankfully, you can detune the bike in the app, so it's not going to be so vicious, because it is very vicious. Put it in full power mode and see if your nerves can handle it. Seriously, it's a rush. Okay, moving on to the ERIDE Pro S. This bike would be ideal for younger teenagers who don't have a lot of experience riding. It doesn't have too much power to where they're going to get themselves hurt super quickly, but also has enough to where they're not going to get bored super quickly either. And finally, the ERIDE Pro Mini is going to be ideal for pretty much everybody. While I have not ridden the Mini, I've ridden plenty of mini bikes in the past, and they are a ton of fun. They put a smile on everybody's face, the whole family. And it's also the least expensive. However, you cannot buy the S or the Mini from Voro.com. You can only pick up the 3.0 and the SR. If you have decided that you want to pick up a 3.0 or the SR, there'll be links down below to where you can buy them from VoroMotors.com. All right, thank you all so much for watching. See you all next time.